All right, with me now is Shan Wu. He is a CNN legal analyst, a former federal prosecutor, and also the former lawyer for Rick Gates. And Lynn Sweet, the Washington bureau chief for the Chicago Sun-Times. Good to see both of you. All right, so Shan, in your view, do prolonged deliberations in a case like Manafort's, does that say that is favorable to the defense?
It's always a little bit of speculation, but in this case, I would disagree with Kevin. I was concerned for the prosecution when that note came out so fast, asking about reasonable doubt, but now jury seems to have settled down and they are deliberating, and as a prosecutor, when I prosecuted, I like that. I like the jury taking its time working through the case, so I don't personally think that a longer deliberation is good news for the defense.
It doesn't really speak to perhaps how complicated this case might be. I mean, we're talking about 18 counts and involving details that perhaps, most laymen are not familiar with. Shan.
It does, and I think actually the jury was very impressive. Their first questions out of the box were extremely focused and went right to the heart of one of the harder issues about the disclosure requirements and registration requirements for the foreign bank accounts. So one possibility is that sometimes a jury wants to get the low-hanging fruit out of the way. If they had some questions about that, they want to know about the law and reasonable doubt so they can analyze the rest of the evidence. And that seems to be what they are settling down to do now.
And then, Lynn, the president actually weighed in on this Manafort trial yesterday. Listen to what he said.
I don't talk about that now. I don't talk about that. I think the whole Manafort trial is very sad. When you look at what's going on there, I think it's a very sad day for our country. He worked for me for a very short period of time, but you know what? He happens to be a very good person. And I think it's very sad what they've done to Paul Manafort.
I really appreciate the support of President Trump.
All right, so two things there, Lynn. Number one, very unusual for a sitting president to be commenting on an ongoing case, no less the jury and deliberation. And then, number two, does the president's sentiment kind of, give a window into his allegiance to Paul Manafort?
Well, I'll take the second one first, which is yes, and he's signaling that he would be open to some kind of clemency. But it doesn't matter for the jury, of course, because they're not supposed to be watching any of it. And, of course, President Trump says, I'm not going to comment, and then he goes on to give maybe 3 or 4 interesting points about the case on there. Can I just throw in one thing? I did cover the tail end of the Manafort case, and here's why I would read absolutely nothing in terms of the tea leaves into this question. The judge gave the jurors about 90 minutes of instructions on this case, of which beyond a reasonable doubt was a portion of it. They don't have a written record of the instructions, and so of course they would maybe need a refresher. I don't know why they just didn't get the written instructions that the judge gave them, but that is another reason why no one should be surprised if they have questions, because they don't have the jury instructions written down for them, and they were sent a lot of exhibits that they will be looking at for the first time.
And then, Shan, how do you digest the fact that the sitting president is commenting on an ongoing case like this, and this case is an extension of an investigation of the president's campaign?
Yeah, truly a historic moment, actually. I don't think that's ever happened before. From a legal, analytical standpoint, does it rise to obstruction, what the president said? Probably not. Certainly very questionable that he would insert his views into it. I would say that for Kevin Downing, the defense attorney, this is a moment that enshrines him in the Defense Counsel Hall of Fame. No other criminal defense lawyer has ever gotten to say that the president supports my client on trial. So it's really amazing. And there's some questions about should he have done that? And I'd say, he can't look a gift horse in the mouth. Judge Ellis chose not to impose a gag order. The judge we were in front of in D.C. Did impose a gag order, so I think he's free to comment.
Okay, Robert Mueller's team, wants George Papadopoulos, he's a former advisor to Trump's 2016 campaign, to spend 6 months in jail, saying he impeded the investigation when he lied to them about his contact with the professor in London. Is the judge likely to impose a sentence like that, or is this just a warning shot, Shan?
I think he's likely to follow that. recommendation. Frankly, it's still quite a sweetheart deal for Papadopoulos, even though he may have hoped not to have any jail time whatsoever. So I think the judge will probably follow that recommendation.
And Lynn, final word?
Well, actually, what is so interesting in the government sentencing memo is how they go through how he went in, and George Papadopoulos, who lives in Chicago with his wife, how he went in on the first interviews without a lawyer. What's also interesting is that his wife had taken to TV shows lately in a plea either for clemency or GoFundMe for their legal costs, and the lawyers even went to the trouble of slapping her down a bit and saying she said something that wasn't right. So, I do agree with Shan. The guidelines range from 0 to 6 months imprisonment, and so even though the prosecutors did mention that range is there, the judge has discretion.
And real quick before I let you go, so Shan, really quick, why wouldn't a case like Manafort's why wouldn't the jury be sequestered, particularly during deliberations, given this is so highly publicized and given that there is so much at stake?
Probably Judge Ellis felt that was too great of an imposition on the jury. Judges are very sensitive to the strain and interference in the jurors' lives. That's what he probably felt. There's also some feeling out there that when you sequester the jury, it places even greater pressure on them. But he's going to be second guessed on this one.
All right. Hopefully they're following all those instructions, right? Not watching reports, because that's usually what comes with an instruction over the weekend when you get to go home and then deliberate again on Monday. No reading of any material about the case, etc. We'll see. All right, Shan Wu, Lynn Sweet, thanks to both of you. Appreciate it.
Good to
Thank
see
you,
you,
Fred.